How we doing? I'm here to rant, rave, and misbehave. And two of the things I always want to do on the radio that other people in radio inspire me are, number one, make noise with paper. And number two, and an old friend of mine from my DJ days when it was more music and less talk, said we should always do this every time we start a new show. I really like that. I like that. So I'm going to try to stick with that. Perhaps we could get a beverage sponsor. Mother Earth has our back right now because she's sponsoring us with water, but we'll see if we can get some other people. I don't know how many listeners we have, but we had more than I could count on 10 fingers, and I could keep my shoes on and still count them, but that's a good thing because it's more than I could count on my two hands. So that's good for a first show, and I appreciate everyone tuning in. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, and this is in response to the first couple people who had some comments on YouTube and on Facebook, so I wanted to address those right away. First of all, thank you for taking the time to comment. Secondly, I appreciate everyone tuning in and sharing and helping grow this thing. We had some trouble initially throwing up the first live recording. I don't know if they have like listening software that listens to particular words, but thanks to the hard work of the producers at Talkwad Radio for trying several times to put up a live radio video show to the new YouTube channel. I appreciate it. But the first thing that someone had asked is, well, if there's THC receptor sites in your brain, then that means you're supposed to smoke. Well, that's pretty much what I said. But this individual on YouTube said, well, if that's so, what about the other opiate receptor sites in the brain? I can't sit here and say that that means to go shoot heroin. I can't say that. Opiates and things like opium and heroin and Vicodin and Percocet, those types of things are much more powerful than cannabis. So medicinally, I would say that those things you need to be working with the professional medical individual before you're messing with those types of things. For pain relief in battle, I could see how those things could be used in surgery and other certain situations, but just comparing the two, just because there's one receptor site and there's another, doesn't mean that they're all on the same playing field. I do not believe that cannabis should be classified in the same playing field as its existing counterparts, such as other narcotics, heavy narcotics, pills, cocaine, heroin, all of those types of things. Cannabis is in its own category, and the reason why I say that is because it's just a plant, and it's not processed, synthesized, cooked down, or tweaked in any way. You can eat it, drink it, inhale just the vapors, or inhale the smoke, and it has a variety of effects. And let's just say cannabis cigarettes were legal, and you could buy, you know, like instead of your Marlboros, you could buy your marijuana cigarettes. It would have a label on there, and it would say don't operate under heavy machinery and stuff like that. But you couldn't like go and buy heroin and shoot up and even expect to read the label and operate anything other than your pillow. So it's really no comparison. Other things we wanted to touch on is cannabis in the news, and there's some awesome, not so awesome news about hemp and cannabis these past weeks. One of the things that happened was we're all celebrating 420, and our brothers in Colorado are at a huge event, and the next thing you know, somebody's shooting. They don't have a suspect, and I would like to just state that this type of crime with someone with a gun shooting at a hemp or cannabis or marijuana rally is in fact very rare indeed. It's weird. That's why we're in such shock. People are used to, you know, if anyone, you know, cops harassing you at that type of event. But it was otherwise peaceful. No one was being harassed. Everything was cool. Nobody knows for certain, but, you know, somebody for whatever reason decided to shoot. Thank God there were no fatalities, and hopefully They can determine who this person is, question them, and apply justice where necessary. And, you know, Colorado, which has moved forward with medicinal marijuana use, can continue to be a prime example of how it can be done properly. But don't say that because there was cannabis being used there, it had anything to do with that person shooting anyone. That's just ridiculous. I was reading a lot of the comments online, and it's like racist. And that's why I wore green, not just because I'm Captain Cannabis, but it's like if I have a big pot leaf right here over my heart and I go to certain places, it's as though people are judging me in a racist manner. And that's one of the things that irritates me, and that's why I want to do this radio show, is to show that smoking weed doesn't make you dumb. Being dumb makes you dumb, okay? So let's just get that straight, and don't blame someone for being under the influence of weed for shooting, because that's just ridiculous. There's way, way more shootings and domestic violence. About 80% is attributed to alcohol use. So that's just, it's low blows like that I wish to use this platform as a means to fight back against. But yeah, there was the one person regarding receptor sites in the brain. Hopefully what I said makes sense to you. But if not, you know, feel free to call in, arbitrate your ideas. I appreciate people commenting. The other thing that was on the news of interest to me was, and this is why I was talking about and doing the comparison with the other drugs, is I had a recent trip out of state to do some business in the Midwest, and what I saw in several newspapers, you know, you're at hotels and you're at airports and there's just newspapers laying around. People, you know, touch them and read them and just leave them for the next person. And several that I saw were about the increase in heroin use in America and around the world, as well as an increase in the synthesized pharmaceutical versions of heroin, because the poppy plant, which is used to make things like Vicodin and Percocet and other strong narcotic and pain-relieving drugs, they're basically synthetic heroin. And it's not ironic that there's been an increase in poppy and heroin production and synthetic heroin production, because for the medical industry, you know, methadone and things like that, Vicodin and Percocet, there's 12 to 20 of them, you know, a dozen to 20 of them. It's basically synthesized heroin. And that stuff is used to get people off of heroin because they're, you know, made from the same thing. But one is more easily regulated and controlled and legal, and the other is just straight raw. In other news, I don't know if anyone saw this. I don't know how far it's going to go, but it was special to me, and it's regarding the fact that they are close to being able to use hemp in the state of Kentucky again. Governors are rising up as leaders across America, thinking outside the box, and many states have led with, you know, legalizing and decriminalizing cannabis for smoking. But I pray every night, and I hope people join the fight to advocate on behalf of hemp, you know, cannabis's kissing cousin, so that we could, you know, grow our nation strong as we once did and had. And on that note, we will segue back into week number 2, show number 2's main topic, which is a brief summary of the uses of hemp. And hopefully our production team is able to help me get some of these photos together so I can go over some of these items. And we had touched on these in the past, and we're just going to reiterate them. And really in particular, and all of this stuff is easily referenced and found to be true online, and this information and these documents are summarized in a piece that I'm going to have on the YouTube page and on the Facebook page, and I'm going to recommend everyone to check out. But it's basically the history of hemp video. You guys need to see that. If you just want to hear my side without hearing me blah, 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 ramble on, that video will do it. It's all over YouTube. Just search the history of hemp. It was officially a government propaganda video in which, like they had in the past, really wanted to motivate and encourage farmers to, earmark or set aside a portion of their land, and instead of producing all of their normal crops, the video was an initiative to motivate people to grow more hemp for the war, to help us build everything we needed to be strong and be an able army to defeat the worst enemies mankind had seen. People take this for granted, but hemp was crucial to us winning World War II and World War III. So I want people to research that, and that video summarizes it. The video is great. It shows many things that we produced in the past, our nation produced, and our nation needed to be produced rapidly. And, hemp was a shining star, and it was utilized in time of need after it had already been, blocked from normal production and all but brought to a screeching halt. Again, we just turned to our people and asked them to help, and we gave hemp seeds to people and mandated that they grow hemp so we could produce it for a wide variety of products. And this video and all the myriad of uses is summarized in that. And if you're just someone who wants to learn more about hemp and find, truths to the story and see the connection between our government and the connection between hemp and industrial success, please look for and watch that video. Okay. There's a famous boat called the USS Constitution, and this particular boat, this frigate, this long skinny boat with 3 masts and multiple sails, is reported as having, and can be verified, to have had over 60 tons of hemp. So we had touched on this before, and I just wanted people to know. And I'm citing this information from my favorite book about hemp, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, by the late, great Jack Herrera. And here, he did the research and verified, and now it's readily available for people to see. But the USS Constitution boat, aka Old Ironsides, they have a partial list, not the manifest what it was carrying, but basically what is this boat, what is this frigate made out of? And you have in its entirety a ton of hemp products. And this goes back to what we had talked about. All people of all cultures used hemp. We used hemp to explore and navigate the sea, and it introduced global economy. So hemp created the global economy. How? Well, boats for international commerce, and we're talking before anything. This is how we got around. This is how we, made the world what it is. An economy based on freedom and based on commerce, where markets ruled. So what we love for America and what we love for the global economy, the freedom and the ability to produce wealth with the bounties of nature, right there at the beginning at its core was hemp. So some of the things that were found on this boat: the ensigns, or the flags, the pirate flags, the pennants showing your nation, the sails, the rigging to, manipulate, tie down, and work the sails, the maps, where are we on the planet? It was all written on hemp paper. Bibles, no one even knew for a long time if the planet is flat or round. So these people had a lot of faith, and they would pack their materials and bring their maps, their Bibles, and their logs of previous journeys, and it was all on hemp paper. In addition to that, and I had personal experience with this particular product called oakum, and it is really taken for granted in history and American history and global history and the history of Rome. Anytime you hear the aqueducts, the Roman aqueducts, these raised platforms to carry water all over Rome, were put together with the same thing that boats were put together with. It's kind of like your mortar of the day. And this is oakum. And my experience with oakum was at Tampa Airport, where they had huge cast iron pipe that would carry water from the parking garages when it rained, you know, into the sewer and the water system. And you take these big pieces of cast iron pipe, and what we had was rope, oakum, hemp rope soaked in a hemp seed oil and a wax-like substance. And we've all heard how oil and water don't mix, and you know, these pipes carry water. And what we did is we literally, with old tools, just like the people who built these boats hundreds of years ago and just like the Romans did, we literally had a hammer, a chisel, some pipe, and some, you know, hemp oil impregnated hemp rope. And they would take these two pipes and put them together and beat into the pipes around the seam of the pipes. They would beat in this material called oakum. And I did that, and I actually melted lead and sealed it in. And when we, you know, opened up these pipes and tested them with water, the water hit the oakum and expanded and made watertight seals that last for years upon years. And this is how the aqueducts were built, and this was how boats were built. And everybody was using hemp to do this everywhere. So the wood was put together with oakum, and the sails were made of hemp, and that's how people got all around the planet and discovered America and created America and brought commerce to the world. So it's pretty amazing. So that's where we start with the brief summary of the uses of hemp. So number one is ships and sailors. So you got these boats made all of hemp, and then the sailors at the time, and we're going way back, but basically people all the way for years before the time of Christ in this particular area wore hemp, as did many people. And it was, you know, what people in Britain wore, and, you know, the founders of America wore. They wore in Africa, China, all over. Everyone had hemp pants and hemp shirts and hemp, you know, uniforms. And the outer jackets were mixed with wool, and some of the materials were mixed with cotton, because like any other, you know, textile and fabric, you can mix hemp with other materials and create new, you know, softer, stronger, different, better materials. But throughout history, ships and sailors, a core component of everyone's history, especially America's, used and benefited from hemp. And for a long time, and for many years, textiles and fabrics were produced of hemp. And to me, one of the greatest, in addition to the USS Constitution boat, one of the other greatest amazing things to me about hemp is another artifact. And we put this up on our Facebook page, but it's the robe of Jesus, according to Catholics who had stored this for years and make it available for people to see. But the robe of Jesus, the robe of Christ, was made of hemp. So that's incredible. It's just amazing. But yeah, these types of things are never mentioned, you know. So a lot of people who believe in God and believe in Jesus, will you please also believe in hemp? Because, you know, that's what Jesus wore when he was around. So that's an important fact to me, and another one that I like to share. And you can just look it up and see a picture. And what another particular item, and again, this one just taken out of the textbooks. I mean, not referring to textbooks to find the information, but literally removed from textbooks, removed as fact, removed as available information to people, is the use of hemp as a fiber for clothing. Homespun cloth was almost always spun from the family hemp patch into the early 1900s. A lot of people say 1776 is the answer to 1984. And if you're of a mindset like me, you know exactly what that means. But what it means for hemp is in 1776, you know, back when our nation was being propagated and being founded, everybody was using a spinning wheel or a spinning jenny and mixing a variety of other materials like cotton or silk with hemp. And that's how people made their clothes, their overalls, their blankets, their wagon covers. And it's the people who came to America because of hemp, came here with hemp, and made it out west. The pioneers, the frontiersmen, the bravest people who founded our country did it and could not have done it without the use of hemp cannabis. So that to me is amazing, and that's why I get excited about these facts. And that's a lot of people get excited about history, whereas some people get excited about reality TV. I wish they'd make a reality TV show and show what's going on with hemp worldwide, and you know, where we could go with it and what we could do with it. And the best way to start is just really digging deep and finding the history. But for clothing, from the 1700s to the early 1900s, people were using and growing and producing their clothes and a variety of materials from hemp. So in addition to the clothes on our back, the fiber-based and pulp-based paper industries were also, you know, originated from, grown, and used hemp as the major raw material, because the hemp, this long, skinny, beautiful plant, anywhere from 6 to 12 or more feet tall, would have in it, among these long fibers, these long rope-like fibers, there was a material called the hurd, and you could use the fiber and the pulp to make, you know, fiber and pulp paper. But instead of, you know, broken down wood, you could use broken down hemp and combine the pulp, the fiber from the hemp plant with other ingredients and make paper. And that's exactly what we did, and that's exactly what our founding fathers did. And when they did the draft of the Constitution, this is where people get mistaken, so let me just clarify. We drafted the Constitution on hemp paper. Then, for a more permanent display, it was then put on an animal skin. But, you know, the people who all grew and wore hemp and, you know, saw by the light of the hemp seed oil lamp, that's what they used. That's what they did. All paper industries, up until a certain time when the enemy showed its face and started fighting against hemp as the material of choice for so many things. That's what we used for fiber and pulp paper. And this is clearly demonstrated in Bibles and ancient texts from the times of the 1600s right up through the 1900s. Look at historical documents, and they were all made and produced on hemp paper. And where you can see where this is really beautiful is in Chinese and Japanese texts with their, you know, very beautiful, very pretty, beyond calligraphy, these symbolic languages. They look beautiful, and they last a long time, and they're very artistic, and they were all on hemp. And anyone who studied, you know, China, Asia, Japan, and they look at these ancient texts and writings, they were beautiful on long-lasting hemp paper, and many are around and still used today. And, you know, they're monks and their monasteries and their temples, and throughout martial arts academies, you can see their hemp paper, where valuable information of their theology, their religion, their mysticism, their martial arts was passed down. So amazing history of the world for so many years was written, documented, and stored on hemp paper. And to this day, you can make beautiful products from hemp, from rolling papers to a variety of textured papers that are beautiful and artistic and long-lasting. And combined with trees or of their own, the use of hemp as paper is very important this day and age, because it can help squash the greenhouse effect and all of this talk about how nature's gone and we're burning holes in the ozone and there's not enough trees and not enough oxygen. Well, hemp helps solve those problems. We can save and protect trees, because instead of using them for just paper to wipe your ass with or clean up spilled Kool-Aid with, we could be using hemp. So if you care about the planet and you want to save trees, consider hemp and look up the facts on hemp and just find out how it was used in the past and how it could be used with paper. And I know it's less of an argument because it's a digital world and we're on digital devices, don't need as much paper, but why kill trees when to the capacity that we have and are, when there are alternatives? And you'll see how hemp is in that argument time and time again. So this show is about waking the funk up to the many uses of hemp historically. I'm your host, Captain Cannabis, and I'm running through one of my favorite books, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, that talks about the conspiracy against hemp and cannabis. This episode is dedicated to people who don't smoke weed, don't care about smoking weed, but want to learn the truth about hemp's close relative, cannabis's close relative hemp, to find out the industrial uses of this plant. If you're someone who cares about jobs in America, imagine growing your raw material. Imagine growing your food source. Imagine growing your paper source. Imagine growing your clothing source, your rope, twine, and cordage source. Imagine growing your medicine. This is what we did, and this is what we can do. And if you're serious about jobs and doing these things, let's do what worked for America in the past, and let's start sowing hemp again. Beyond fiber and pulp paper, beyond use of for ships and sailors, textiles and fabrics, rope, twine, and cordage were all produced of hemp. Virtually every city and town in the world had an industry making hemp rope. Russia, however, was the world's largest producer and best quality manufacturer, supplying 80% of the Western world's hemp from 1740 till 1940. Look how huge Russia is. Siberia, how big it is. The biggest nation, the biggest land mass for so long. And they produced the majority of the rope, twine, and cordage for the world. Huge fields as far as the eye could see. I can only imagine how beautiful this was. And approximately 80% of all rope, twine, and cordage was made from hemp right up until 1937. And that's a whole nother show, but we talk about who conspired against hemp. But if you're of the mindset of an entrepreneur, sole proprietorship, businessman, sick of being overtaxed, and just want to work and produce for your family and do something, there's so many industries and so many jobs in the past and could be right now created and kept alive because of the use of this material. Everyone's seen a hemp necklace. Everyone's seen hemp rope. If you lift up your carpet on the backing, you'll see it. But it used to be everywhere. Many people talk about how the pyramids were built, and if there was rope used and involved with the building of the pyramids, hemp was once again a stellar performer. Other people who might want to show some love and respect for this plant would be George Herbert Walker Bush, George Bush Sr., who had hemp in his clothing, in his boots, and most importantly, you know how they saw how sails worked and would catch wind and carry people all over the globe. They created parachutes so that the webbing and the stitching and the actual rigging of the parachute were all made of hemp. So pretty amazing stuff throughout history. If you're an art buff, the perfect art canvas, the perfect medium in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, when we had what was considered some of the best times, most illumined periods of history, the most prosperity, the Renaissance. These amazing painters who still create conversations in industry and wealth for years to come. Everyone was painting on hemp canvas. Everyone was using hemp-based paints and varnishes. And this isn't just from the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and in many areas still to this day, hemp canvases, hemp-based paints. But some of the oldest recorded history of mankind. Yet again, when the smoke clears, who's there? Hemp. Hemp is there. Yes. In the France and Spain Dordogne cave regions, scientific tests showed that the oil pressed from rocks, from hemp seeds with rocks, basically smashing and grinding hemp seed, producing oil. This oil was used for so many substances, for the oakum, for the paints and varnishes, for the lamp seed oil. But the very first paint, some of the oldest art in recorded human history, was, you know, dried up flowers, crushed rocks, things where they made a powder for the different colors. You know, yellow flower, yellow powder, red flower, red powder, mixed with hemp seed oil were the first paints and varnishes. So these cavemen who made these cave paintings did what they did because of hemp. And it's lasted, you know, 30,000 plus years in these caves. Hemp seed oil was used to make the paint that our ancestors used. It was there at the beginning. It was there until we started polluting and, you know, corporatocracy took over. But hemp was there throughout history. That's what this episode's about. Paints were made from hemp. The canvas was on hemp, and the varnishes. We had touched how oil and water don't mix, so you have a natural tannin or dye or some other material mixed in with hemp seed oil, and they produce varnishes and furniture. Like they say, they don't make it like they used to. It doesn't last like it used to, but the varnish and the waterproofing material of choice for hundreds of years was once again hemp. So recorded history, art history, the oldest recorded human history that was artistic was hemp. And here's something else that I saw in the news recently. This was cool because in Central Oregon, a scientist, a team doing an expedition found what they're stating is quite possibly the world's oldest shoes, or the oldest, you know, visible, seen, recorded use of something that we put on our feet to protect us. And guess what they looked like? Guess what the material was? Guess what the oldest shoes that they found that people were using were? Yes, excuse me. They were, in fact, hemp sandals. Yes. This rope, this twine, this material prevalent, used by everybody, was also used to produce shoes, sandals. The first time we get around not barefoot, what are we using? Hemp. But so many people are against it. So many people don't want to know the facts. So many people don't want to know the truth because somebody lied to the people and made a connection between hemp and cannabis and said they're the same. They're not. There's no THC in hemp, and there's far less biomass material that can be taken from the cannabis plant to produce all these different things. So draw the line in the sand in any conversation when you're talking to someone about hemp or cannabis, and make sure you're talking about the right plant. You know, you want the right suspect? Let's talk about the right suspect. Let's talk about the right plant. So continuing on from paints and varnishes, where these materials, unlike the fiber or the hurd, was the actual oil from the seed. In addition to making paints and varnishes, the oil from the seed is used in lighting oil. To me, this is amazing. I mean, how can you hear a statement, mankind saw by the light of the hemp seed oil lamp, and not want to learn more about this? It's so integral to our history. Until about 1800, hemp seed oil was the most consumed lighting oil in America and the world. From then until the 1870s, it was the second most consumed lighting oil, exceeded only by whale oil. Look up some of these videos where we hunted to extinction whales. It's disgusting. Don't say you're an animal lover and not lend me an ear to learn the truth about hemp. Because hemp was there before we started slaughtering and killing and raping and pillaging the sea. Hemp is what we used before whale oil. No slaughter, no waste, no disrupting the blood of the earth. The earth's blood is the ocean, and we find the most magnificent creatures and slaughter them like it's nothing. Why? To, once again, fight against hemp and prevent it from being used. Because marijuana, food, fuel, and fiber, they say it makes you dumber, but it really makes you wiser. There are enemies against everything that is good, wholesome, and natural on the planet. Don't believe me? Google Monsanto, okay?